This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
This is Marshawn Lynch. On Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. So I'm here to make sure you don't miss any of the action this football season. With Prize Picks, it's good to be right. With millions of members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks is the best place to put your takes to the test. The app is really simple to use and available in 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Just pick 2 or more players across any sport. Pick more or less on their projections, and if you're right, you can cash in. With simple stats and fan-friendly policies, Prize Picks is the best place to make your picks. Most importantly, they don't play about your paper. All transactions on the apps are fast, safe, and secure.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish lineage to find. Joseph from Carlisle and Gavin the Dog. Guide you through the ways of Shine's
Post World War II, Dev gets down to business. There's an election in 1948, right after World War II, and this is where, again, we're going to reference it maybe for the last time. This is the Russian Crown Jewels episode. In the lead up to 1948, the Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are slinging mud at each other. For some reason, anti-communist sentiment is even higher now after World War II, even though the Soviets did a lot of heavy lifting. Sure, they did kill millions and millions of their own people, but they got Hitler. This is where it comes up again. They're slinging mud, calling each other communists, and at some point, Minister for Finance Sean McEntee accuses Sean McBride, who's the leader of this new Clan na Poblata, a new party that's on the scene, of being a communist. He writes a letter in the Irish Press, Dev's newspaper, saying McBride was associated with various communist groups. In response, Patrick McCartan, who's one of the founding members of Clan na Poblata and was on the Give Us Money tour with Dev back in America, he brings up the time that they got those jewels off the Russians. So that's when Dev has to come forward and explain the whole thing. But that's one of the big issues heading into the 1948 election. One of the other ones is a good man called Con Ward. He's born in Monaghan, reared in Dundalk, good stock. He's essentially the Minister of Health in the 1930s, I guess, before they made that. It was still part of another group. They didn't think that the health minister needed to have one job to do. But he was also very much aligned with the Catholic Church, especially John McQuaid, over medical matters. In 1944, when sanitary tampons came on the market for the first time, they banned them in Ireland for fear that they would sexually arouse girls at an impressionable age. So they're gone. There's also stuff we kind of glossed over in the last episode, but in the mid-1930s...
An impression... What?
Just the whole idea. I think at this time, anything that even involved women, and especially young women, and pregnancy and childbirth, the attitude was just better not, just leave it alone. And by leave it alone, I mean heavily interfere with it. And just don't let anything near it. Because in the 30s, we glossed over it in the last episode, but there's... Contraceptives would have been maybe illegal, but there was a loophole that they weren't specifically outlawed, that Dev closes. But he owned a bacon factory business in Monaghan, and there was some falling out. The manager was dismissed. The manager's brother was a former TD, so he brings information to De Valera about all the scandals that Con Ward has been getting up to. All sorts of allegations. There's a tribunal set up a month later, which is a quick turnaround for a Fianna Fáil tribunal, during which he is cleared of all charges except tax evasion.
Well, that does make sense.
That does make sense. That does track. But this is enough of a scandal that a fella has been brought into it, not paying tax in Fianna Fáil. That's enough to shake confidence going into the 1948 election. So Dev does get him to resign within a week. So this is something of a bygone era, I guess. Accusations brought forward, tribunal, charged, fired, all within 2 months.
But found innocent, and then still
Of everything, but of most things apart from tax evasion, and even that was enough to get rid of him. The first and last time maybe Fianna Fáil would ever do such a thing. But that's the lay of the land heading into the 1948 general election, the one that they lose. So Clan na Publicta, Sean McBride's Clan na Publicta had been on the scene for a while, and Fianna Fáil were threatened by these new young guns, and they were losing, I think, by-elections to them. So De Valera decided to do what every politician always does, call a snap election to try and shore up Fianna Fáil and cover the losses they'd had in these by-elections. They'd been in power since 1932 at this point, so they'd gone through bad economic times. They've done a lot, but
went through a
world war. It'd been a rough, couple of years. So people were feeling it was time for a change. Fianna Fáil were running on a platform of more of the same.
Murder, more IRA, man.
So they stick it to them in the ballot by giving them 41% of the vote rather than the customary 50%. So really showed it to them. So Fianna Fáil are 6 seats short of a majority, but they're still, comfortably the largest party. So they're looking around for someone to join them, fill up the last couple of seats. And the other parties realise that if they all band together, they can form the first inter-party government and keep Fianna Fáil out. So instead of them being able to convince 6 people to join them, literally everybody else in the country who ran joins together and keeps Fianna Fáil out better. And we covered all this sort of stuff in the Costello episodes, the inter-party episodes. This is the first inter-party government, and they, in their short band of time, managed to do what Dev never did and make Ireland a republic. And we covered how that happened in that episode, which will be maybe behind the paywall or maybe linked in with this one. I'll figure that out later on. But there's a funny instance where the first inter-party government gets together, and the first thing they have to do is nominate a Taoiseach. So everyone who's in and who's out is voting as to who the Taoiseach is going to be, and Dev is still an option, even though Fianna Fáil hadn't got it.
Well, if you look at everyone else's CV, no one else to come applying for this has ever done it before.
That's true.
He's the only man with the experience. If you want to vote for a Taoiseach,
he's
going to give it to the lad who was Taoiseach.
He knows how to do the job. He gets 74 and 75 against. So he gets very close to being, it's just default Dev. Put him back in again. Put him in to get him out. Or, vote him out and then put him back in again anyway. So this is a weird part of his, I suppose we've made fun of him. He's got a bad track record so far on the North, on partition. And now he's in opposition. Fianna Fáil's in opposition. He's the leader of the opposition, and he wants to take a hard stance against partition. He goes full anti-partition. Now, where would you think the best place to organise an anti-partition campaign would be from? To try and reclaim the 6 counties, where would you set up office?
Dundalk,
that'd be a good option. Dev goes a little bit different. He goes on a worldwide tour to go talk about anti-partition. So he leaves Sean Lemass in charge of the government and just kind of fucks off he goes to Australia, New Zealand, India, all around the Commonwealth. Kind of like he's just talking about anti-partition, but as far removed from the country as possible. But
that's how you do have to spread the word.
Who cares?
No, yeah.
Like, why does it matter if you go to New Zealand and tell them about what's happening right after World War II? You're like, you wouldn't believe this. 6 of our counties still owned by the bloody British, if you think of such a thing. To all the countries that are still pretty much like Dominion countries and have all lost thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people to World War II.
Post World War II.
Like, have you heard about Fermanagh? Yeah. Like, it's insane. I don't know what the hell I don't know why he does this, but then and maybe this is just because I've decided in my head.
He comes back with some donations, and 4 years later, RTE.
Well, it's made funnier by the fact that while he's going around on this, what I would assume is a completely pointless tour.
He's after getting the wife pregnant.
Yeah, what's that? I gotta go with it.
Check the timelines. I guarantee you the wife is after telling him she's pregnant.
And he's away off around the world. While he's away gallivanting, wasting time, Costello declares Ireland a republic, which I can only imagine he's very annoyed by that. But he spends a lot of time in Australia hanging out with various Catholic ministers, having chats over there with them. He goes to visit the last Governor General of Burma, a man called Lord Mountbatten,
Yes.
Yes, has a bit of a chat with him. He says, don't go selling Sligo.
Actually, Sligo might be fine.
We'll cover him in a different
Yeah, we should do a
someday.
Mountbatten episode.
Because at this time, there's an awful lot of talk that he was, pedophile and a Jeffrey Epstein type with Kincora Homes and stuff like that.
There was a lot of talk. He was a bit dirty nonce.
No, at this time when he was Minister for Burma,
even
the
then,
FBI had a file on him. So before anything else, or maybe the CIA, because they loved keeping files on people at this time. But they were like, hey, it's proclivity for young men. Anyway, Dev hangs out with him for a bit.
Mountbatten's Island.
Yeah.
It's just ackle.
But yeah, he's traveling around glad-handed and chatting to people about, or it feels like he's kind of retired. Like he's left Sean Lemass in charge of the country and just is hanging around with various diplomats and Christian brothers in Australia. In the meanwhile, Ireland becomes a republic 21st of December 1948. It removes the last powers of the monarch and hands them over to the president. So now it is what he had fought for in 1937 was a republic by any other name, and now it's named the republic. He got rid of the I think we talked about it in those episodes, but I think the monarch still had the power to appoint foreign diplomats or a couple of niche but like important things, and Costello's just gotten rid of those because someone pointed a gun at him in Canada and he got pissed off. But Dev, during these times, I guess there's also the shake-up of the world after World War II. The UN is coming into force. Dev is anti-UN and anti-NATO on the basis that they would threaten neutrality, and he doesn't want to be part of them while the North is still partitioned. He seems to really care about the North and partition, except when he has to do anything about it. He uses that as an excuse as to why they don't want to join the UN and NATO.
But then not do anything about it.
No, I think he's pretty against joining the UN. He's very against NATO. He's pretty against the EEC later on. What he isn't against, supposedly, is the Commonwealth. He is annoyed that Costello left the Commonwealth as part of his Republic deal.
Why? Just because of trade benefits, or?
Yeah, but it also seems like the sort of thing that, I don't know.
But also, if you're going to be in the Commonwealth, surely you would join the war on the side of the.
You know, it's good for trade and economics.
He's never cared about trade before.
Exactly. Yeah, really seems like maybe he's annoyed that it wasn't him that did it.
Yeah,
Costello did it. But
he's like the trade war, the fact that we were neutral during World War II.
Yeah,
the not allowing Britain to have like use of the ports.
Yeah,
for the war, feels like he doesn't want to be in any way linked to.
Yeah, but he should have been the one that did it.
He should have been the one that. Yeah, but also he should have been the one that did it. He had a long time.
Yeah, well,
he had time to declare the Republic.
Yeah,
he had time to leave the Commonwealth.
Sean Russell gave him 5 years, which is very reasonable.
Yeah,
it only took Costello one.
All of these things he could have done, and he sat on his laurels.
There's only two because there's so many different statuses within the British Empire, Dominion statuses, and all this sort of stuff. There's only two countries that have actually left the Commonwealth for good. Ireland and Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe's been trying to get back in since about 2008, I think. So there's a lot of paperwork involved. A few countries have said they will, and they kind of remove bits of the monarchy and stuff like that. But Ireland is the only one that's gone and stayed out, which is something. I guess Dev made no attempt to bring us back in. It would have been
there's the games. There's a good chance to win a medal.
That's true.
Take America out of there. Take most of Russia aren't in it.
Sure.
China aren't there.
They're still getting beaten by most of the other countries.
Yeah,
depending on the sport.
Hey, I didn't say what medal. Chance for bronze.
That's true. Yeah, chance of bronze in painting. But as a funny little, I don't know, in October 1950, Dev went back to Lincoln Prison, where he was locked up that time, for a little tour around the place, which he went to his old cell, which is funny. I don't know how many times has that happened in like world politics history, where the leader of a nation goes to another country and looks at the prison cell he was in. He asks for a go of the master key when he's there. Everyone has a nice little chuckle, and he's told to fuck off. But 1951, time for another election. By God, the country loved them at the time. Costello and Fine Gael and the inter-party government have been in for a while. They're shaking things up, but people are annoyed. They're annoyed at the price of milk. They're annoyed of the mother and baby home scandal, which again we've talked about in other episodes, the Bolton Glass post office, amongst other things. And the country goes for an election in May of 1951. And they decide to give Fianna Fáil give them a chance again. I mean, they've been gone for 3 years. That's enough punishment for them.
They've learned their lesson.
They've learned their lesson. What's Steph been doing the whole time since? He's been fucking off around the rest of the world talking about partition. What will he do when he gets back in?
The idea of like leaving the Commonwealth, declaring Ireland a republic, you would think that would be enough to just landslide at least one more election.
I'm going to say it now. This is the only time I'll say it. I feel bad for Fine Gael. They really... To be fair, I guess it's, we talked about it in those, I think we did 3 episodes about this inter-party government. It's a big coalition of people who all, like, you've got a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas. It's hard to keep that together. But, I mean, they do a lot. Not enough in that short time. But it is funny just to, like... But it's the same thing we do now. It's basically just let someone else have a go for a little while, blame all the country's ills on them, and go back to Mammy and Daddy Fianna Fáil and just let them fuck us over for a while.
Well, we've never gone in our lifetime.
What?
To another, to let someone else have a go, unless you count when Fine Gael were in power. But the idea of it is
2011 is kind of when this breaks.
But it's the same thing, and then it goes to Fine Gael. But then, and they're supposedly a different party all the way until Sinn Féin come along. And then it turns out they're actually the same party all along. So we've never really had anyone else at a go.
Well, Sinn Féin, from the second Dáil, handed over power to Sean Russell, which then he got killed by Dev in that submarine. So now Dev has the power. It's like a Horcrux. It passes to the Snake Man. But 1951, they get 46% of the vote, which means they get a new government, a load of independent TDs, including a recently unemployed Noel Brown, and they head in to back into the Dáil again. I think it's at this point Dev is asked, after his big showboating tour around the world talking about partition, he's talking about his actual policies now that he's back in charge. And he says, if I am asked, have you a solution for a partition? In the sense, is there a line of policy which you propose to pursue, which you think can, within a reasonable time, be effective? I have to say that I have not, and neither is anyone else. Which is an awful lot of words to say.
No.
Having a fucking plan.
Yeah.
I've just been, going around glan-handed and talking to famous diplomats and coming up with nothing.
Do you have any ideas? I don't, but neither does anyone else.
Don't
ask them.
Yeah, he's not up to much, but in his defense, maybe during this period, this is where his eyes really start to deteriorate. He had gone for surgery. Well, there's an image of him when he's writing the Constitution. His eyesight's going, and he'd gone for surgeries at that time. He disappears. He gives the external affairs portfolio to Frank Aiken this time, and he heads off in August 1952. He has a detached retina, and he goes off to Utrecht in the Netherlands and gets a load of surgeries there for 4 months, which again feels like a time gone by with the leader of the country. Like he's just after getting into power, and he's gone for half a year for surgeries.
For eye surgeries. He's gone to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
His eyes are very red.
Yeah.
It's not related for any reason. And he sets in motion a chain of events that would put Bob Marley into Dalymount Park.
What was he? He's probably trying to figure out, talking to the Dutch about partition. He's like, what do you think we should do? Have you ever thought about going up there and asking the Unionists or the Republicans in the North, what about the lads you put in prison? What about the ones you executed? I wonder what they would have thought about it. It's like, maybe Lord Mountbatten knows what to do. Let's head to Burma. But 1953, this is unusual. I didn't realize this when we were doing the other episodes, but 1953, the only time he actually meets Churchill in person. They'd been in a party, I think. They'd been at some event at the same time in like 49, but all the interactions between them was all in media. Yeah, they'd never actually been in the same room until 1953.
That's mad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So just letters,
I guess he was busy.
Phone calls.
Yeah, phone calls, them doing TV interviews, press interviews, shit talking to each other, but they never actually met in person.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's because he's busy hiding out in the 20s, which I forgot to bring up in any of these episodes. But
so Churchill wouldn't have been there when he went over before Collins to go visit Lloyd George.
No, it's just Lloyd George. And then,
That's really, it's really interesting. It doesn't mean anything. Well, yeah, it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
Because they've been like a major thorn in your side for decades.
And they're pretty close to each other geographically.
Very
lots of long, protracted talks between the two countries. They do it remotely. Work from home.
Yeah.
I don't know. But when they chat in 1953, this is supposedly he says to Churchill that he wouldn't have taken Ireland out of the Commonwealth. He said that was a Costello move. He said he had no objection ever to Ireland being a member of the Commonwealth. What he had an objection to was an oath of allegiance to the King as King of the Commonwealth. He had come to the conclusion that the Commonwealth was a very useful association for us because the Commonwealth countries, especially Canada, Australia and New Zealand, had a strong interest in Ireland.
And Ireland had a strong interest in sending people over there.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, there you go. So in 1954, then I don't really know why, but they got a budget in 1954 that's coming out, and I think they want to. It's not a good budget. Times are tough. I don't know when times are good, but times are tough this time.
Unlike all budgets.
Unlike every budget, yeah. So I think they want to call an election afterwards to shore up their. I don't know. He wants more seats so he can run through whatever policies he wants, but they lose, and it's back to John Costello. It's the second inter-party government. Everyone gets together again to keep Dev out, but at the same time, they do a vote to see if Dev should be Taoiseach. This time, loses 66 to 78. 66 for Dev, 78 against, and Costello goes back in for a second.
So he's losing ground.
Yeah, but this is the only time. So Costello does 2 3-year stints, non-consecutively. That's the only break in Fianna Fáil for the whole stretch of about 42 years, I think. But he's gone again, and in that time, Costello joins the UN in 1955, which Dev's against, because it threatens neutrality and partition, his usual things. But in 1956, again, out of government, he gives a speech about tightening belts. He says, "We have to tighten our belts. I am against external loans. The policy of self-reliance is the one policy that will enable our nation to continue to exist." He reiterates what he told people in 1917 of the choice between independence and continued incorporation in the British Empire. He said, "We have the choice of the humble cottage instead of being lackeys partaking of the sops in the big man's house," which is pretty funny. But that's his economic policy now. It's like, we're better off being poor and Irish than anything else.
That's always been his policy.
Poor, humble, living in a cottage, neutral, apart from the north, whatever, forget about that bit. And
I
free.
Personally will own a bunch of media outlets.
Remember what I
will live in, have it like South Dublin.
Yeah, what was the big quote at the start where he's like, give no more chopping of the turnips and all that bollocks when he leaves Bereave for the first time and goes to Dublin? Where's that?
Yeah.
Now he's talking about, let's go back to humble cottage farm life.
But like everyone around the country, they're like, you're happy enough with your knuckles in the dirt. You keep dragging them there.
Yeah.
I'll live in Blackrock.
Yeah.
Well, he won't. He'll live in, where was his house?
I suppose he is probably in Blackrock at this stage, but he's about to put himself into Aris and Uachtaráin soon. So once he's got that set up, he's like, we should all go back to the land. That's what it's all about.
Once you have a roof above your head, what more could you want? Now, my roof will be Aris and Uachtaráin, but everyone else could be a wicker, like a thatch house.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Some roofs are bigger than others, but as long as we're free out from underneath the British yoke, apart from Tyrone, forget about that bit. But again, there's also big talk when he's out of power, but he still manages to in this period. I don't know. This is more marks against him for being a Free State bastard, but they shelved a 1955 report arguing for a more proactive policy and partition. There was a proposal to put forward a Minister for National Unity. Dev said, don't need that. In 1956, he opposed a proposal that Northern Nationalists elected representatives would be admitted into the Dáil. So I'm not really sure how that would work, but I guess people could be elected in the North and take their seats in the South as nationalists.
Instead of going to
Westminster. I mean, it makes, I suppose that could... But the legalities of it would be...
But what?
Well, I suppose just because you live... There's probably something in the Constitution or somewhere saying that you can't be an elected representative if you don't live in the country, but they would make an exception, like a technical exception for the 6 counties. So you could run...
but then what power to enact anything when you go back to those counties? Like, you wouldn't...
But it would put more of a push... At least anyone elected in those counties would... Their main thing would be like... What about partition? What about unification? They'd be pushing that as a platform. The same thing they've been doing the whole time with politics. They'd elect these people with the sole thing of like getting... It would unite the countries on some level.
But if they were...
step forward.
But how would they know? They have to go to House Commons. They have to go to Parliament in the UK.
They go to the Dáil here.
So these are not the elected officials that are part of the British government.
They extend our...
I thought you were saying get them elected there and bring them down to the Dáil.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you're like...
Well, just that you'd run in Armagh, and if you got elected, you'd go in the Dáil. But you'd run in our elections.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the British elections.
But then you wouldn't have any possibility. There's
you
way
wouldn't have any.
There's no power.
Yeah.
You would just be.
Well, if you're a citizen in Antrim, you could vote for a British MP to fix potholes and get stuff done. But then you could also vote for an Irish TD that would just go.
Okay, now do you know what? I'm on board. Now it does make sense.
See, the trouble is, if you brought that in, there'd just be. The trouble is, there'd just be a load of people from the north who would have no power to enact anything other than to show up to the Dáil all the time and give out about why
partition.
Yeah, exactly. And Dev wouldn't like that because then you'd have to do something about it.
Yeah.
So, that's his record when he's out of power there for the mid-50s. But luckily, 1957, he's suffered enough. He's been out in the cold for a lot. Bring Dev back in. Come on. The second inter-party government, fuck them. What the hell have they done? Nothing. So they give Dev another go-around, his last go-around, unfortunately. He comes back from the polls, 9-seat majority. Biggest result for Fianna Fáil so far. They cannot lose. This sets up another 16 years of Fianna Fáil rule, just in time for, Mr. Partition, Mr. North himself. The IRA kicks off their campaign in Northern Ireland in December of 1956. They're arming themselves. Dev, he did, now, to be fair, let's not forget, he did travel all the way around the world and talk to literally everybody else about ending partition. Mm-hmm. And then when he got back into power, busy.
Well, you would also imagine that
other stuff came up.
But he would think that probably his popularity in the north would have been very low.
He wasn't, every time he tried to go in there, he got arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
so you could see, just from his point of view, you could see why he's like, whoa, I want to keep getting elected here.
Yeah.
And if you're back and forth between, he's been out twice. He never thought that would happen.
That's true. He got shook, maybe.
Yeah, and then he was like, "Well, if it's this tight anyway, and it's kind of back and forth, changing hands a lot. If we bring in all of these lads from the north who hate me for leaving them behind,
yeah. So
that he's like, it's a selfish move.
Well, no more selfish than maybe that's the same idea. He puts the boot down again with this iteration of the IRA in the 50s. So he reintroduces the Offences Against the State Act of 1940. That's back again. Brings back internment without trial. Not even the British do that. At least they'd shoot you instead of arresting you. I mean, they would and they did. But still, not great from Dev. And that's how he leaves his last sort of role as Taoiseach. There's a good quote from John A. Murphy saying, so Dev steps down in 1959. That's his last run of Taoiseach there. He says, when Éamon de Valera departed from active politics in 1959, he left Irish society very much as he had found it, which is probably true. But he's such a big, huge part, as this is the end of him as being like an active. Now, he goes on to be president for another 20 years or so, but that's very much a ceremonial role. This is the last of him having a sort of active hand in how the country is run and how it's been moulded in his own, very much, you would say, in his vision for most of the time up until now.
All it took him was about 43 years.
Yeah, but he did it. He brought about the Ireland that he wanted to see, which was a humble cottage, anti-capitalist, simple agrarian life.
Right as we're coming into the swinging 60s.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. 1959. He's out. Get rid of him. It's time for mini skirts and the Beatles. But that's a hell of a run from Dev. There's this. I have this book of obituaries from the Times of like great Irish lives. There's always a very funny line about Dev. Spoilers, he dies, but this is written about his time when he finishes.
But not for a long time.
Not for a long time, yeah. But it's he was Prime Minister for 16 years and then on and off for another 5. He accomplished much, yet the two objectives of his later political career, which seemed to be nearest to his heart, on which he had certainly expended most rhetoric, the end of partition and the restoration of the Irish language, were as far as ever from accomplishment when at last in 1959 he sailed into the placid waters of the presidency. Which is a very mean way to say it when he went on to become president of the fucking country. When he was pretty much a big failure when he sailed off to the placid waters of the presidency. A little bit of respect for the office, I had to double take reading that. I was like, come on, the man, he just got elected president. He's like, yeah, but a bit sad.
Yeah, but it is
we've got a presidential election coming up now. Whenever someone's elected, it was like, a bit pathetic. Didn't really finish all their hopes and dreams when they became president of Ireland. Bit sad.
Well, no, he got all of his hopes. What are you talking about?
He didn't the North, last time I checked...
He didn't want the North.
That's true. Yeah,
That's not a thing he wanted. And
he talked a lot about it.
Yeah.
The Irish language.
A lot of people talk about a lot of things.
Yeah.
That judge a man by his actions, not his words.
His actions spoke volumes. Every time he was out of power, he wanted nothing more than to get the North back. By God, he'd travelled to the ends of the earth, literally, to get it back. And when he was in power, he was, busy with stuff. Rugby matches to play. He had to go to Daily Mail to get shouted at for that.
But then there's also, as president, you could use the office to try and further those things. It's not
he made up the office of president as a retirement plan.
Yeah.
He wrote that in himself. He got Douglas Hyde elected the first time because he was Protestant, but he spoke Irish and therefore was the most diverse man the country could imagine. And then he had it set up for himself.
But I mean, as a president of the country,
yes,
your aims of having everyone speaking Irish could still be done. You could still carry out. I mean,
yeah, he got Michael Collins's grave written in Irish. That was all.
But
he really wanted.
He's created a position, multiple positions over the years.
Yeah,
and he's changed the roles of what jobs are, and
that's true,
and what and what little pieces of paper called the law, what they actually mean. So there's no reason that while being president of Ireland, he couldn't have figured out a way to get people speaking the feckin' language. Was it 16 years he stays as president? Is it 75 he dies?
75, yeah. Yeah, so 16 years.
So 16 years he does what?
I'll tell you what he does. But as a tangent, just because I read this about Douglas Hyde during the week and I thought it was funny. And actually this relates to the Irish language as well. But so Douglas Hyde, first president of Ireland, Protestant, but Gaeilgeoir. This is from his diaries or journals, I think. He said, I overtook a young man driving a cow before me, and I spoke to the young man in Irish. And as I was speaking in Irish, he was answering in English. And at last I said to him, don't you speak Irish? And what was his answer? Well, I declare to God, sir, that neither my father nor my mother has one word of English, and still I can't speak, and I won't speak Irish. And I, who had just left Professor George Godet of Brittany, France, and Professor Hakon of Copenhagen in Denmark, and Kuno Meyer of Germany, living on buttermilk and potatoes on the mountainsides of the houses of the peasantry to learn to speak the language that this reptile was discarding. To tell you the honest truth, I lost my temper. And I stood out from him, and to tell the honest truth, I hit him one kick. And mind you, it just shows you what the loss of your native language does for you. The poor unfortunate devil, he didn't have the courage enough to knock me down. He didn't have the courage to turn around and knock me down. So that's, I don't know what age he was there when he was doing that, but probably in his 60s, Douglas Hyde, held up in a traffic jam by some Irish fella with a cow. Yeah, he calls him a reptile and then kicks him because he can't speak Irish. He's like, Chiz, you know what it is? I won't speak Irish. I don't know what the hell he was ranting about, all this just name dropping various people he'd met. Yeah. So he was, some guy was like, I won't speak Irish. And he kicked him. And then he was like, this is how much of a coward these non-native Irish speakers are. He didn't even have the courage to knock me, an old man, down.
He probably didn't want to hit former president of Ireland, Douglas.
Some fucking lunatic who's hitting you, shouting at you in Gaelic. And
an old man, yeah.
He's like, that's what. Game's gone. Country's lost his fight. Wouldn't even knock an old man down in the side of the road. That's cowardice.
That's what the English do to you now.
Yeah. Anyway.
A real Irishman would have hit this pensioner.
Knock the fucking... Yeah, hit him with a cane. Or shillelagh. But, so yeah, Dev, President of Ireland, 1959. He gets in, he resigns as Taoiseach, the leader of Fianna Fáil, and as a TD for Clare, which he had been, I think, the whole time he was elected as TD in Clare, going all the way back to, 1918. In and out of prison, pro or anti, whatever the hell, I always went with Dev.
I mean, did you see the CR video vaults, the video of Dev in when they go to Ennis and talk to people? Yes, like in 1975, and there was even one young lad, sorry, there's one old man who was like, "Oh, I barely remember the time he came down, but he was a good man, and he came down, and I don't remember it, but I fell off a wall." And it's like,
a British wall.
Dev is dead. They have a 3-minute segment where they're interviewing people about what did they think of Dev. And a good 30 seconds of that is some man going, actually can't remember. I do remember he came down. Don't remember much about it. I fell off a wall.
Did you bang your head by any chance? Why, I did. How did you know that? Douglas Hyde came up behind me and hit me over the head with a stick as I was speaking the British tongue. But yeah, I mean, I guess he does. To be fair, in this story, we have read a lot of occurrences of him. He seems to be constantly standing on the top of a cart in Ennis giving speeches of one sort or another. But he hands over the power to Sean Lamass anyway. He gives everything to Sean, sails off into the placid waters of the presidency. And this is I did start running out of time by this part of the story, I'll be honest, because there's 2 referendums I want to do more research on. But they ran in 1959 alongside the presidential debate, a referendum to get rid of proportional representation, which these days people love it. But Dev didn't like it because it brought about such things as inter-party governments, what will keep him out of power for 6 years out of the fucking 40 odd that he was in.
Too many. 6 years too long.
If it was first past the post, and looking by the numbers, they averaged 42% first preferential votes the whole time. So if he did get rid of proportional representation, Fianna Fáil would just be in power the whole time.
Always in power,
and they wouldn't need pesky.
So basically, that means that they never really lost any.
Even when they lost, they don't.
Their fan base was always the same.
The only time they don't get in is when literally everyone else in the government. I keep saying literally. If you look into it, it's probably not literally, but it's like you're talking about coalitions of 6 or 7 parties and independents all having to agree to go against Fianna Fáil. That Fianna Fáil are still the plurality.
Which is a little. If other parties now looked at that,
yeah,
that's
it could
still
be
a possibility.
Done. It is, yeah. But
when you put 2 parties together and they actually, in the end, only get the same as what Fianna Fáil used to get,
yeah, really,
it wouldn't be that crazy. That really shows how no one wants to work with Sinn Féin.
They will do anything. Yeah. Sinn Féin solved the Civil War by bringing these 2 parties together. Yeah, so he wants to bring in first past the post, a British style system, which, I mean, I don't know, go and listen to an Irish Times politics podcast about the different types of vote if you want, but it's proportional representation has always seemed like a very fair. It does lead about a more fractured political structure, and it does give more power to insane independents, which that's half the fun.
Also makes the results a lot more interesting.
It does.
Yeah. It's box office. Then.
It is.
First round, okay, done. Yeah. Now it's time to get into
transfers. It's a lot more fun. I don't know but a lot of people agreed with him. It barely stays in. So 51% of people vote no, 48 vote yes. So
probably a lot of people are against it just because they don't quite understand how it works, like myself.
It's more because votes transfer, you're more likely to get diversity of voices, and you're more likely to get. It stops Ireland swinging too far away from the middle.
One way or the other.
It's very hard for.
Well, it makes sense if you're there's 8 options. I think this one's great. Yes. This one's good. I hate this one, so I'm not voting for that. But it'll probably be why we'll never really get a far right government.
No. Or I say
that now. I'm going to look like an idiot and give it a.
But I don't know. As far as I think it's pretty good. But also, it is funny that Deb, even though
write in and tell us why we're wrong.
But Deb, Fianna Fáil have been unbelievably successful by any political party's standards. And here, as his last final thing as he's sailing off, he's like, get rid of that. Fianna Fáil should be more powerful. I don't like this. Having to get in bed with Labour, it's undignified. Thank God he was dead when they joined up with Fine Gael, my God. But they tried to do it again in 1968. They bring in there's another referendum to try and get rid of it. So Jack Lynch's Taoiseach at that time, but old man Dev is still around. Bending his ear, telling him to get rid of it. That one is defeated by a bigger margin, so I think it's 60% against it and 39 for. So further away, and then they don't bring it up again. But strange that he wanted to try and get rid of it. Now we're getting into the swinging 60s. I didn't put this together. The first 1961, first ever appearance on Irish television. Éamon de Valera.
Oh, that makes sense, though.
Direct to TV speech. Does it? I mean, he's out of power. He's not the Taoiseach.
He's the most famous person in the country.
He is. He's the president, the job he made up for himself.
Yeah,
They're starting the television station.
No one knows what Gay Byrne looks like yet.
Yeah, Gay Byrne's only knee-high to a grasshopper. And did I send that to you, actually, the footage of him talking? It's not, like, very funny, but he's clearly not. I mean, why would he be? He's not as media trained as, say, you or I, who've just made our first television appearance yesterday. But he's quite awkward. He's speaking in Irish for quite a bit. He speaks in Irish for quite a bit, and then he goes to English and he says, obviously, as I just said there, it's like, come on, Dev, you know I don't know what you failed. And that's why I don't know what you just said there for those 2 minutes. But he gives a little speech to the country. Television guide for the opening night of Taoiseach. 7 o'clock. Opening of Taoiseach and the national anthem, and then Éamon de Valera speaking to camera. Right away after that, what do you reckon?
Late Show.
Mass. The Benedictine of Blessed Sacrament. A mass ceremony for, I think, 12 minutes. Then after that, there's a toast to Taoiseach at 8 o'clock. Where there's a big meeting of all the guests of Montrose, and the fucking RTÉ don't be on the air for an hour, and they're already getting together to pat themselves in the back, buy a load of champagne and a toast at Montrose.
We did a great job here. Do you know who else? Do you know who do a good job?
Yeah,
our children.
Yes, and our nephews and nieces. And then there's a Céad Míle Fáilte. And then, did you ever see this? But RTÉ used to close at night, and it would finish with like the national anthem. And just a little stock video of waves and footage and stuff like that. B-roll of Ireland.
That used to happen when we were growing up.
No.
On like 4 o'clock in the morning. It would stop and it would just go into...
That's true, yeah, it would. Yeah, that's true. They would have like a strange colour scheme.
Yeah.
But this is... maybe it still did then in the 90s. It didn't, definitely in the 70s. But I don't know, it's a nice little like... Just play the national anthem and show footage of fields and waves.
Like they're not serving pints anymore.
Yeah.
Right, you don't have to go to bed, but you have to stop watching telly.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. You can watch that footage if you want. I might stick it up on Instagram, but it's very funny. He gives his first presidential address on television, 31st of December, 1961. That was a big New Year's celebration at the time. But in 1963, as president then, he's there to welcome John F. Kennedy. Mm-hmm. Oh, he gives a big welcome for JFK. We should probably do an episode about JFK's visit to Ireland because it's pretty funny.
And then the assassination.
Yeah, which is that later on that year, actually. Yeah, 63.
Are you think Dev had something to do with that as well?
Well, because JFK makes a mug of him.
Last time there was leader of a country driving slowly around the place.
Well, because JFK does make a mug of him. I didn't really get this. We did this in a live episode. I don't really understand what the insult is here. But JFK gives a speech in the Dáil. Everyone's like, it's hard to explain how big of a deal JFK was to Irish people at that time. I mean, what the old joke or the old standard to be like in every Irish home to be a picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Pope John Paul II, and JFK. Like those are the 3 J's of the Holy Trinity. Like this was. With less than within 100 years, Irish people went over with nothing, not even the clothes on their backs in the coffin ships escaping the British-made famine, and now there's a Mick in the White House. Like it's huge. Like he's our Obama. Like it's a big deal for Irish
but that's what I was going to say. Like
and now he's back. Boy done good.
The deal that people made about Obama being part Irish.
Yes.
Like, hold on, this guy's name's Kennedy.
Yeah.
Is he third generation? His grandfather moved over, was it?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but that is
it's yeah. We were
to go through the time of the way the Irish would have been treated in America at that time.
But can you imagine an Italian president? Yeah. I mean, it's the same time in the 60s.
Wash your mouth out.
The Italians got the Godfather. We got John F. Kennedy, right? That was how both the Italians and the Irish became white. We moved on, you know. We were both equally happy with our representations. But it's a huge deal. Like he comes back, it's momentous. But so he gives a speech in the Dáil, and he says, can you do a good Kennedy?
Just do Quimby.
Hey, I am not illiterate. Right. Anyway, this elegant building, as you know, was once the property of their Fitzgerald family, but I have not come here to claim it. Of all the new relations I have discovered in this trip, I regret to say that no one has yet found any link between me and a great Irish patriot, Lord Edward Fitzgerald. Lord Edward, however, did not like to stay here in his family home because, as he wrote his mother, Leinster House does not inspire the brightest ideas.
Oh,
bit of a tongue-in-cheek wink. You know, Kennedy, he feels like he can do no wrong. He's banging Marilyn Monroe. He's hopped up on Quaaludes. He's going around getting handshakes and pints of Guinness thrown at him by every Irish person around the country. Has a wee bit of a dig at the Dáil. Leinster House doesn't inspire. It's sometimes a bit of hot air coming out of this place. Dev apparently pulls him aside and gives him a big dressing down because of this. I think it's all done in private.
Dev walks off and calls up Lee Harvey Oswald. You want to see the size of this guy's head?
Yeah.
You couldn't miss.
He calls up Sonny O'Neill and he's like, I've got one more job for you. It's time to get out of retirement. I think at this point, Sonny O'Neill's looking for his pension from the IRA. But, well, no such thing as a free lunch, Sonny.
What do you reckon he said to him? Just told him you're not going to disrespect Ireland.
He said that he had done no service to Irish politicians by this quote. Which, can you imagine that from Dev? Strong dressing down. By God. Oof. Kennedy be shaking in his boots.
I'll take that on board, Dev. Just 1 second. I have to go back to banging Marilyn Monroe here.
Yeah, getting phone calls about the Bay of Pigs. But I'm sure he's very worried that he's done no service to Irish. Dev's probably walking away.
To the President of Ireland.
Yeah. That was broadcast, RT having just been invented 2 years previous. I think it was broadcast and recorded and filmed, and he took that bit out of it. They censored it. A little lesson he learned from Frank Aiken, maybe, in running his own Irish press. But that's such a tame joke. I don't know.
I mean, also say if it doesn't inspire the brightest ideas, he's been the head of it for the last...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's like about 50 years of Dev mainly been the person running it, so it kind of is a shot across the bows to him.
Yeah.
It's only been, 6 years?
So what, Dev gave him a shot across the bow? A little bit too close. Sonny was old at that point. He didn't have... He was only meant to wing him. But, going back to Dev being a Free State bastard, in the New York Times at that stage, 1963, gives an interview. He says that Ireland is Ireland without the North. I don't know the full context of that quote, but I don't need it. Fuck him. So, going back to the subject of hand, there's a funny occurrence in 1964 where Liam Deasy, he was a pro-treaty Collins man from back during the Civil War. He sends a letter to President Dev. There was an article published in the Sunday Review about 3 years before this saying that same weekend the Collins travelled south. A significant meeting took place at Ballyvorney, County Cork, about 20 miles west of Ballinablaw, a small unimportant crossroads from which roads radiated to Macroom, Bandon, Skibbereen and Clonakilty. At that meeting were senior officers of the anti-treaty forces, including De Valera, Michael Murphy and Daniel Sando Donovan. Donovan and Murphy told De Valera that Collins was known to be in or on his way to Cork and that all units had been alerted to ambush his convoy. The road between Cork and Cove, which was known to be on his schedule, was mined. They told De Valera that Collins will not leave Cork alive. To this he is said to have replied, "I know, and I am sorry for it. He is a big man and might negotiate. If things fell into the hands of smaller men, there's no telling what might happen." So DC sent that paragraph to him and was like, we're endeavouring our best to check from all possible sources if this is accurate or whatever, and sends this to Dev, president at the time, and was like, did you say this back in 1921 or whatever?
And then DC was shot the next day. Died in a submarine off the coast of Galway.
So Dev then sent him an open letter of reply, basically saying he doesn't remember and he doesn't recall such a meeting. He doesn't know who those people are. And from his point of view, there was no specific ambush to kill Collins. There might have been an ambush for Free State troops. That was a tactic at the time, but it wasn't specifically set out for Collins, and that he had no knowledge of immediate danger.
He could have just flat out denied it. So he's saying that there was a meeting.
He's saying if there was a meeting, he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember being at that meeting, and he doesn't,
Whereas I would say, no,
I didn't do that. This is digging up old wounds at this point. Dev's old and he's the president, and here's DC sending him a letter being like, do you remember being here and saying that you knew Collins was going to be shot and you were sad, but that you wouldn't do anything? There's another maybe contemporary report. Well, not contemporary report at all. This is a letter from a school child who was talking about his grandfather, Jack, who was Éamon de Valera's driver at the time. So the kid wrote, during the Civil War, when Micah Collins was shot, Jack was driving Éamon de Valera in an area outside Fermoy, buoying morale at the time when they received news from an oncoming motorbike carrier that the big fella was shot. De Valera put his hands to his face and started to cry and said, poor Mick, poor Mick. When my great-grandfather used to hear stories that De Valera was present when Michael was shot in Bale-na-Blaw, he used to go berserk because Éamon was with Jack. So a child wrote that out.
A safe distance away.
A safe distance away. A child wrote that out, and that was put into De Valera's folklore.
I was going to say,
yeah. So, evidence. How could he have shot him when he was clearly with Jack and sad? So we put that one to bed.
Quote,
didn't do it.
A child.
A child, yeah, who I think, maybe I read it wrong because the handwriting, very nice. Joint up calligraphy from a child there, and he used words like bowing and... De Valera was stationed near Fermoy, and my grandfather Jack used to get so annoyed he'd go berserk when people said Dev shot him because we knew his exact whereabouts. Not that far away. Anyway, heading into the presidential election in 1966, Dev, second term, he's running as president. He's allowed 2 terms, which is a rule he made up himself. So he's going in for the second one, and he goes up against and beats, you guessed it, Tom O'Higgins. The O'Higgins family, the never-ending losers of Fianna Fáil. I almost lost my mind trying to, when I was re-listening, when I was editing the second episode, going back to the O'Higgins stuff, it took me so long to wrap my head around it. There's 3 generations of O'Higgins. Half of them get shot by the IRA. Half of them, they're all in Fine Gael. They're all called Tom. The 2 of them are called Tom F. O'Higgins. Tom F. O'Higgins Sr. and Tom F. O'Higgins Jr. are both Fine Gael ministers around the same time. One of them's a doctor, but his son is the Minister for Health, and the doctor is the Minister for Foreign Affairs or something stupid. They Irish-fied their name at some point by putting an O apostrophe in front of it. So sometimes they use that, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they refer to doctor as doc, sometimes they don't. Then there's like Tom O'Higgins, who's the grandfather. His cousin was the Governor General, so another reason that maybe Dev would have had him whacked. He dies in like 1923. Kevin O'Higgins is the Minister for Justice who gets shot in 1927. He's the brother and nephew of, well, let's just say, yeah, he's the uncle of this Tom O'Higgins that's in the presidential race. But the O'Higgins as a family are probably the antithesis to Dev. Ironically, I guess there's 3 generations. It's only been as long as one De Valera. But they've kind of they've gone up against him and Fianna Fáil throughout the teens, 20s, 30s and 40s and 50s. They've been involved in all of the big moments of Dev's career, but on the wrong side of history. And now, in 1966, here comes young Tom O'Higgins ready to set the record straight. Roger Caseman's bones have just been brought back to the country in 1965, and it's the 50th anniversary of 1916, the perfect time for a presidential election, which again, maybe, 7 is an odd number. That's a weird number to have for a presidential run. You know what I mean? Did Dev plan this? Did Dev plan, when he wrote in how long the presidential terms would be, did he work backwards and say, when my first term is over, it'll be the 50th anniversary of 1916?
Oh, I never thought about that. That is
pretty very clever.
Very possible.
Yes.
Is there any other countries that do 7 years?
I don't know. It's a strange amount of time.
4 or 5 would be around.
Or 8, another round number.
No, 8's too much. Again, no, I would say like 4 or 5, because at least 5 is like, right, 2 every decade.
Yeah. What's 7 about? Number of days in the week, maybe?
What?
Holy number?
No, it's about him getting in again. It's about him being able to name all of the train stations around 1916.
Exactly. Because this is a very funny maneuver from Dev, but Dev has the right to nominate himself for second term, which is a rule that he made up, but he chooses not to and gets Fianna Fáil to nominate him out of, ceremony.
Of course he chooses to not, because if Fianna Fáil had to nominate someone, he'd have to run against, that would be another person. Whereas,
well, they could just not nominate anyone.
Well, yeah, but also it's like if he nominates himself, there's a possibility.
It's a bit sad, I suppose. Yeah.
But that there's another person though from Fianna Fáil who would nominate, like that he'd have to run against.
No way, he'd have to go up against Dev's Fianna Fáil. Fuck that, he'd have the whole shot. He'd lose the IRA on them again. But No, he gets Fianna Fáil to nominate. I suppose it's more.
It makes more sense.
Yeah. But it's a sort of this next bit there, what you were talking about there, the train stations, a shrewd, crafty, clever move, which brings us to the next point, that his campaign manager, a young Charlie Haughey, which is another running theme that all of the, I think Bertie Ahern is like Brian Lennon Senior, and they're all campaign managers. But anyway,
it is just when you think about the legacy, that it goes Dev, Haughey,
Bertie, Brian Cowan.
I would say it's ruined by then.
Well, that's another good stint though.
That there's one person between Dev and Bertie.
Yeah, and it's one of the most corrupt men in the nation's history. But yeah, so as another classic move when they're so Tom O'Higgins is going up against him. Tom is meant to be running this sort of young JFK style suave sort of a campaign. From the start of the campaign, though, Valera says that he won't conduct the campaign himself, believing that the office of president should be above party politics. It's beneath the office for us to run campaigns, so we'll both, like gentlemen, do no press. We'll just let the people decide. No radio, television, anything like that. So O'Higgins agrees to this for some reason, and goes about carrying a sort of grassroots campaign, going county to county, meeting as many people, county council meetings, public meetings, town halls, shaking hands, doing all this sort of stuff. Whereas Dev, he goes around the country and renames our train stations after the dead revolutionaries in 1916. Purely just for the 50th anniversary. But while he's there cutting the ribbons outside the Tom Clark Dundalk train station and talking about the good old days of 1916.
It's like, I remember saying to Tom back at the time, because who else was actually there at the time? Oh, there's no one else left, is it? It's just me.
It's just me. I think I seem to remember. No, actually, Tom O'Higgins' grandfather was there. That was, and what was he doing? It was shooting anti-treaty IRA men in the head. That was it. Didn't you do that in the 50s, Dev? Have that man killed. How would you like them to walk down Bill and the Blow? But a very funny and shrewd move from Dev, just to go huge, big fucking events, renaming the train stations and reminding everyone the great job he did back in 1916. And to more, High at the time he was the Minister for Agriculture. And so Tom O'Higgins, carrying a bit of steam. He's a young buck, fresh-faced. He's probably like 50-something at the time, but compared to old man Dev, he seems to be making a bit of progress. And Haughey, completely off his own back, his own volition, announced a £5.5 million spending bonus for farmers about 5 days before voting began. Just apropos of nothing, throw that out there. And again, no campaigning on the radio. It's below the office of the president. Let's just go around, rename the train stations, and throw out the guts of £6 million for the farmers.
While he $5.5 million to the farmers, while he literally cuts red tape to open train stations.
Yeah. Although
that's beautiful. That's 5 days before.
Yeah. Although many of the farmers would say it was $3.5 million by the time we got to there. But an extremely tight vote, though. I don't actually know if Tom O'Higgins calls for a recall, but he wins by less than 10,000. So it's 1% difference.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is pretty funny, but
still a big enough number.
Still a big enough.
10,000 sort of like, you're not going to get that wrong. You might. But
I suppose, but 1% of the vote.
Yeah, but it's 10,000 people is enough to be. You're not going to get.
Yeah.
If it's a race between two people,
I suppose. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if you win by 1% or 99%. Dev's in. He's in again, re-elected as president in 1966, aged 84, which until 2013 was the world record for the oldest elected head of state. It was beaten out by Giorgio Napolitano when he was re-elected president of Italy in 2013, I guess. But do you remember him?
I don't remember him, no.
Nope, never heard of the name. But at Dev's retirement in 1973, at age 90, he was meant to be the oldest head of state in the world at that time. So I think that is still to be beaten. But for the rest of 1966, so his first year as president, during the rest of that year, there's a lot of obviously 1916 ceremonies, and we'll touch back on the Collins stuff again. This is probably the last time, but this is going back to Tim Pat Coogan's his research and his notes. He says that Joe McGrath, who was a compatriot of Collins, he approached Dev in 1966 and asked Dev to become patron of the Michael Collins Foundation, which was like a grant for education for young folks what can't read good. The foundation was set up by Johnny Collins, Michael Collins' brother, the man who was left alone standing at Collins' graveside by Dev that time. Johnny's son, who was also Michael Collins, he's involved in the running of the foundation as well. Michael and his brothers, so that generation, years later when Tim Pat Coogan was doing the research for this stuff, Michael and his brothers told Tim Pat Coogan that Joe McGrath had told them that when he asked Dev to be patron of the foundation, Dev said no. And this is where that famous line comes from. But Dev supposedly said, "I can't see my way to becoming patron of the Michael Collins Foundation. It's my considered opinion that in the fullness of time, history will record the greatness of Collins and it'll be recorded at my expense." So that's a line you see around a lot. And Tim Pat Coogan swears that this is true. But it's very funny, he's like writing this impassioned thing about how true it is. I don't think it was a book, I think it was an article rebuttal, someone criticizing his book. But he's like, it's 100% true. Why would Michael Collins' nephew lie? And he's like, I went to school with Michael Collins and his brothers. They are some of the most honest men in this country. What possible reason would he have to lie about something that he heard third hand from Joe McGrath? What possible reason would Joe McGrath have to lie? Died in the wool Collins fan going up and talking to Dev, who he thinks had his friend shot. So who knows? But he gives another example in that, another equally believable example in that same article, but he says that he interviewed Gene Foley, who was a member of President Kennedy's cabinet over in America. He interviewed him in March of 1997. He says that Gene Foley told him that for the 50th anniversary of 1916, celebrations at the GPO were attended by distinguished Irish-American delegates, including the distinguished John Fogerty. And Fogerty took advantage of the occasion and asked Valera, "Mr. President, what's the story with your involvement in the death of Michael Collins?" Dev supposedly said, "I can't say a thing, John, but that fellow had it coming." So again, what possible reason would any of these men have to lie about stuff that happened 30 years before third hand? But the idea that like you're invited to, you as a US delegate are invited to Dublin for the 1916 50th anniversary, and you go up to the president and be like, "Between myself and yourself, did you have him shot? What was the story with that?" Like,
yeah, who's the guy on the boat when Dev comes back? He's from America when he says, the big fella's got the country working class. He's like, we'll see who the big fella is now.
It's funny, all these people have solid memories of something that, like,
you'd remember something, you would remember something like that.
To be fair, this is the, that's true. If Dev did say that, but like, if Dev Valera walked up, if I asked Dev Valera, did he have Michael Collins shot? And at 70, he was like, you know what? He had it coming to him. I would remember that. I'd be talking about it every day, but who knows? There's only a couple of bits left now, as he's not really up to as much. Obviously, at this point, he's quite elderly, but he does get asked to, in 1969, if you believe in such a thing, man lands on the moon. And 73 counties send goodwill messages to NASA for the first historic lunar landing. And Dev's message, sent on behalf of the Irish state, said, "May God grant that the skill and courage which have enabled men to alight upon the moon will enable him also to secure peace and happiness upon the earth and avoid the danger of self-destruction." And then he found out that there was a young man called Michael Collins on that ship.
And he made him
they had that man shot.
Made him stay on the ship.
Yeah. Sonny O'Neill on the moon on the crater. 87 years old, holding the Mauser rifle. In 1972, Ireland joined the European Economic Community, the EEC. The other big thing of that year, so there's 3 referendums. There's one to let Ireland join the EEC, which passes. There's one lowering the voting age from 21 to 18, which passes. But there's another one which seems crazy to me, to get rid of the part of the Constitution, of Dev's Constitution, that specifically gives a special place to Catholicism or the Catholic Church. That gets repealed in 1972. It passes by 84% of the vote. Which is, and I looked through every single county, every single district, it passed. There's no, Roscommon, Donegal hangovers or whatever. That seems crazy to me. And I feel like I'm missing something obvious, but like the fact that with no fanfare, the special reference to the Catholic Church got removed from the Constitution in 1972.
By such a landslide. And we continued to be a very Catholic country for a long time after.
Yeah.
That just shows you how much that there's a lot of people who wouldn't have been very religious, but to make it easier on the mothers so they wouldn't have her given out to you, that. But also, they would have voted on this as well.
Yeah.
Or else they didn't bother because they're thinking, sure, of course everyone's going to.
I don't know. That
is wild by such a landslide.
Honestly, if you ran the referendum today, I think you'd have a bigger percentage of people who want to be like, the Catholic Church belongs in the...
No, now would be the one I'd expect those numbers. What was it,
84%?
Yeah. That's what you'd expect now, or maybe even a little bit more. But back then you would go... It just goes to show we were right what we were saying in the other episodes, that there's... it's in all the O'Casey plays. It's in a lot of Irish literature over the years that they wouldn't have... Ireland wasn't as religious as what a lot of people would have you believe.
More spiritual.
Spiritual and that. But it's a lot of people would have known what the Catholic Church was up to.
Yeah.
A lot of people would have had the shite knocked out of them by the church, been sexually assaulted by the church.
Yeah.
They would have known, they were taking money from people. It wasn't what people would say it was.
Yeah.
It was fear and power.
There's
of your mother, and you didn't want to upset her.
I suppose the ballot box is the sanctity of the ballot box. You can go in there and vote in private, and maybe that was people's private intentions. But I mean, there's also it's really interesting. I want to read more about it because it's I suppose the reason I'm bringing it up at this point, not only it was a referendum, but it meant that Dev had to sign it into law. So that's one of the president's jobs. They've got final veto. I don't know, has there ever been a case where they have actually vetoed it, but he technically has to sign it into the Constitution. So he's, writing out of the Constitution this thing that he spent so long handcrafting himself, only, not that long ago, 37.
His life's work,
something that and I think we kind of glossed over it, or I kind of glossed over it in the other episode, but he sends ambassadors to the Pope to get the Pope's blessing on it. And now the Pope doesn't, so it's Pope Pius the 12th at the time. And supposedly the line that comes back is, we do not approve, neither do we disapprove. We shall maintain silence. So they don't fully...
They love silence.
They do love silence, again, on certain matters, but it's not a full... Even though it is, I think it kind of annoys everyone, which might be part of the reason why it gets voted out or taken out at this point, because some people see it as not Catholic enough, because it does also give representation to the Quakers and the Jewish faith as well at the time. But some people think, because I think you said it in the other episode, maybe that 1916 is a very socialist, feminist document. 1922 is much more secular. Again, this is beyond the purview of this podcast, but after World War One, the horrors of World War One, people are a bit more secular. There's a bit of a loss of faith in church maybe at that point. At this stage, things have maybe settled down, or by 1937, things have maybe settled down. They're getting back to writing less separation of church and state into constitutions, but I don't know. It's a very interesting result that it was.
Didn't they break his heart and he fucking dies in a couple of months?
Yeah, maybe this is the beginning of the end for him. Also an interesting point, and I'm only bringing this up across the episodes because of current events of Palestine, and Ireland's been painted in a very anti-Semitic light in the last 2 years for objecting to a genocide in Gaza. And specifically,
people ask us, is Ireland racist? Of course Ireland's racist.
Ireland's racist. But in 1966, the Dublin... I think it was sponsored by the Dublin Jewish population, or basically there's a forest planted outside of Nazareth dedicated to Éamon de Valera, the Éamon de Valera forest. So that was, I think Donald Fallon showed that to us during the live episode, and Ronan Brosnan of Shite Guide sent that into us again the other day. But, don't know, just an interesting quirk. Also tying back into the whole Hitler's condolences thing. Obviously the Jewish population didn't hold that against Dev. 1966 dedicated a forest to him for... a lot to do with this, specifically giving a special nod, I guess, to the Jewish faith in 1937, which is a big swing in Europe at that time. But I can only imagine sad old Dev signing that out of the Constitution. After the referendum of 72, Ireland would have been fully into the EEC in 73, and De Valera was sceptical of more involvement with the EEC and the loss of sovereignty. But at this point, he's 91 or 90 maybe, and he's on his way out. And at the end of his second presidential run, him and his wife, they leave. Him and his wife, Sinead, who I don't think we've mentioned in the last two episodes. I did a little bit of effort to put her in the first one, but she really drops off. Yeah. Like all the women in his life, she gets sidelined as soon as...
the menopause hits.
Well, as soon as she's, I don't know, finished putting out 6 kids at 24, she's gone. No, I suppose she would have been... She's older than him.
Well, she's busy. She's off writing a load of books.
A load of books that, I've never heard of, and they haven't come up in any of the... They're all great, I'm sure. If anyone's read them, we can do a book review of them someday.
So such great books as The Absent Husband.
And Romana Clef Tawtry love affair about a twisted romance between a woman called Jane Flanagan and Keichel Mullins. The big fella, I'll say. But so they leave Arsenal Route for the last time. 24th of June 1973, they leave the President's House in Phoenix Park. Again, the park where their son had died in the 30s, which might explain why. I remember in one of the episodes we said Sinead, she never really liked living there. Didn't like, that was maybe part of it. But anyway, they leave there and they head over to Talbot Lodge in Blackrock, which is a convalescent home, sort of an old folks home, where De Valera apparently he'd paid visit to the patients back in his Blackrock college days. So they seem like Blackrock and the Holy Ghost Fathers Secondary School, like all around Blackrock, they seem to be the happiest days of his life. There's a big influence on his policy making and the connections he makes there, and John McQuaid and stuff afterwards. So it plays a big importance to him, and that's where he goes to spend his last remaining years. Not notably heading back to Clare, which is something. But that's where the two of them go anyway, and he has enough to live in that small cottage life that he described in his 1943 presidential address. But Sinead De Valera dies the 7th of January 1975 on the eve of their 65th wedding anniversary. And Éamon dies a couple of months later on the 29th of August 1975, age 92. They're both buried in September. There's a joining grave in the Republican plot in Glasnevin Cemetery.
Yeah, 96 and 92 are phenomenal ages.
Brave ages, yeah. And I don't know. I am a sucker for...
Maybe they were right. Like, no alcohol. Pray.
Yeah, well, I mean, sure, are you going to live longer through a life of abstinence? And a bit of it's genetic, but also if you're not drinking the head of yourself the whole time. Shaka Collins, he drank the whole time. He lost his head as well. Dev, old pious Dev, last. But I do. I am always a sucker for like when old people, when one of them dies and the other one dies then a couple of months later, instead of sadness. It's sort of very sweet and also very bleak. But that's pretty much it. The two of them are buried together in Glasnevin. They've got... That'll have to be another episode because this is already too long, but they've, a heap of kids, a heap of grandchildren. They influence Irish politics for a long time.
Still doing it.
Still do. Éamon O'Keefe is still going. I think he was in the run for president.
Really?
Well, I don't think he put his name forward, but he's one of when they're coming up with a list of people who might do it, it's like, why not Éamon? Yeah. Why not?
Why not? He endorsed Michael Flatley for president after doing a 2-hour-long hit piece on him for the podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's
was put under pressure. Had a little moment where everyone looked over behind me. I thought it was going to be a late show kind of reveal of, the person you're talking about is actually behind the curtain coming out now. So I didn't want Michael Flatley kicking me in the head.
You panicked.
I did.
Yeah. And
what a president he would be.
I think this country would right itself if there was a Valera in Ars Neutron. But there you go. So yeah, a lot of stuff to cover.
That's fair.
A lot of big moments.
And we're not done yet. We've got the whole bonus dirty Dev.
Yeah, all the stuff that we didn't feel comfortable saying. Mostly just that.
Dirty Dev Valera.
Dev After Dark. But we'll put that out on Heads Up Plus. That's it. Hopefully you enjoyed the Dev series. Hopefully you enjoyed the Collins series earlier on in the summer. And same as that one, if we fucked anything up or left anything out, or if you have any connections to Dev, you want to send us in for the Behind the Paywall episode. Someone told me, I couldn't find any verification of this, but I've chose to believe it because someone said it in a pub, that De Valera was their grandmother's godfather, and that it was a kind of custom at the time for people to pick as a godparent, just like a celebrity, basically, like a De Valera type figure, and that he was a lot of people's godparent.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't know.
What a shit god. Like, if you're going to have like a load of godchildren, I suppose, you know what, actually?
He lives in a giant house and he's got 12 children.
In many senses.
His wife...
Isn't every Irish person a child of death?
Yeah, in many senses, yes. It is mad that a country that's changed so much, like, there's one man you can kind of like...
Trace it all
back to.
God, he'd hate it.
Such a heavy hand in the country for so long, through so many different periods. is wild. But that's the end of the Deb series. That's the end of the episode. Good luck.
Chapter.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Head Stuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.